The rooster hadn't even started yet when a 9-year-old girl in Lancaster County reached into the hen house for eggs and found a copperhead coiled where her hand was about to go. She didn't scream. She backed out slow, walked to the barn and got her father. He didn't grab a hoe. He didn't grab a gun. He got a 5-gallon bucket and a flat piece of plywood. And 10 minutes later, that snake was alive, unharmed, and a mile down the road in a fence row it would never find its way back from. That's the part almost nobody expects. Amish farms sit in some of the thickest copperhead and timber rattlesnake country in the eastern United States. And yet the families working that ground kill almost none of them. Not out of fear, not out of carelessness, because they've built an entire quiet system, working 5 layers deep, that keeps venomous snakes off the working parts of the farm without a single one dying for it. It helps to understand why the two are even in the same place to begin with.
Amish farms tend to sit on the kind of ground copperheads and timber rattlesnakes already favour on their own. Rolling farmland, edged by wooded ridgeline, stone outcrops, and the exact patchwork of field and forest that gives a snake both a hunting ground and a place to disappear. Add barns full of grain, and grain that draws mice, and mice that draw snakes looking for an easy meal. And a working farm becomes one of the more attractive places a snake in that country could end up. The families didn't choose this proximity. Their grandparents chose this soil for the same reason the snakes did, because it was good ground, and the two have been sharing it ever since. This is how that system actually works, from the ground up. Start with the reason underneath all of it. It runs on arithmetic as much as it runs on faith, and the two point the same direction. A snake, even a venomous one, spends its life eating exactly the animals a dairy farm can't afford to feed. Rats and mice ruin stored grain, gnaw through harness leather, and spread disease through a barn faster than almost anything else on the property. Wildlife biologists have long pointed out that a healthy snake population is one of the cheapest forms of rodent control a farm will ever get, working around the clock, asking nothing in return. Kill the snakes and the rats come back within a season. That's the practical half of it. The other half runs deeper. Old order communities generally hold to a belief that a life shouldn't be taken without real cause, that God's creatures aren't there to be destroyed out of convenience or fear. Nobody writes it into a farming manual. It gets carried the way most things in that culture are carried, through what a father shows his children at the hen house door instead of what he tells them. A snake gets moved. A snake doesn't get killed for the crime of existing where a person happened to be standing. That father, the one with the bucket and the plywood, walked his daughter back to the hen house that same afternoon. Not to punish her for being scared, to show her, calmly, what a copperhead's head looks like next to a harmless milk snake's. The way the pit between the eye and the nostril catches the light different. The way a real rattler's tail sounds nothing like the dry rustle of a black snake moving through straw. By the time she was collecting eggs alone again, she wasn't fearless. She just knew what she was looking at. The goal was distance, not extermination. And distance starts with the ground itself. Walk the edge of an Amish dairy farm And you'll notice something before you ever see a snake. The grass right up against the foundations is cut short and kept short, mowed close enough that a snake crossing it has nowhere to hide and no reason to stay. The woodpile isn't stacked against the barn wall the way you'd stack it at home. It sits up on rails, off the ground, out in the open. The cedar shakes still shedding that sharp resin smell into the air months after they were split. Because a snake wants exactly two things near a building: cover and rodents. And a raised woodpile with clean grass under it gives it neither. Stone walls and rock piles, the kind that pull heat in through the fall and hold it, smell faintly of wet stone and moss, even in a dry September. And they get built out at the field edge instead of beside the house, so that if a snake wants to den for the winter, it dens 300 feet away instead of under the porch. None of this costs $1. It's just where things are put. But habitat control only slows a snake down. It doesn't tell anyone it's there. That's the second layer, and it comes on legs. Guinea fowl look almost comic wandering a barnyard, grey and speckled, screeching at anything that moves wrong. But that screech is doing real work. When a guinea spots a snake, the whole flock erupts at once, a harsh, chattering alarm that carries across a farmyard the way a smoke alarm carries through a house. And every guinea within earshot joins in, even if it never saw the snake itself. Farmers who keep them will tell you the birds rarely have to actually fight a snake to do their job. The racket alone is often enough to send it looking for a quieter address. And if a small snake does get too close, a determined flock of guineas has been known to mob and kill it outright, wings up, moving as one loud, indignant body. Either way, the family gets a warning long before anyone's hand is near a nest box. On a farm with 50 acres and a dozen outbuildings, that early warning matters more than almost anything else in the system, because the alternative is finding out the hard way. Underneath the noise, there's a third layer working even when nobody's watching. And it's the one most outsiders never think to ask about. Barn cats and black rat snakes. A big black rat snake is not venomous, and it is not shy about defending its territory. It eats the same rodents a copperhead eats. It dens in the same rock piles, and where the two overlap, the rat snake tends to win the argument. Farmers have noticed this for generations before anyone put a scientific name to it. A barnyard with a healthy rat snake population and a working colony of barn cats tends to have fewer venomous snakes showing up at all. Not because anyone drove them off, but because the food and the real estate are already spoken for. It's a strange kind of protection. The family is, in effect, letting one kind of snake live so that a more dangerous one doesn't have a reason to move in. The girl from the henhouse grew up knowing the shed skin of a rat snake by the feel of it, papery and pale, and she'd leave it hanging where she found it in the rafters instead of sweeping it down, because a shed skin up in the beams meant one thing to her family. Something else wasn't going to want to live there. That's 3 layers before anyone's hands ever touch a snake. Habitat that offers nothing. An alarm that never sleeps. competitors that hold the ground. And still, every so often, one gets through anyway. Because copperheads and timber rattlesnakes are patient, and a farm is a big place. The system gets stress-tested hardest in the middle of summer when the hay comes off. A mower cutting through a field full of tall grass flushes out everything living in it. Mice, voles, and whatever's been hunting them, all at once, all moving toward the tree line at the edge of the field. That's exactly where a farmhand is standing with a pitchfork. And it's exactly why families working these fields keep their eyes on the ground as much as the crop, watching the grass ahead of the blade move in ways the wind doesn't explain. Most days, it's nothing. A few days a season, on a farm with enough acreage, it's a snake making a run for cover at the same moment a person is closing in on it from the other direction. The habits built over years, the calm, the bucket kept within reach in the wagon, the practiced eye for a diamond-shaped head, are what keep that moment from becoming an emergency. When that happens, the fourth layer starts, and this is the part people find hardest to believe. Where you'd expect a phone call to an exterminator or a can of chemical spray off the shelf, what actually shows up is a bucket, a flat board, and a level head. The method is almost embarrassingly simple once you see it. Place the bucket over the snake, slide the board underneath to seal it in, flip the whole thing upright and carry it away. No hand ever gets within striking range. The whole thing takes less time than it takes to describe it, maybe 30 seconds from first spotting the coil to walking off with the bucket sealed shut, the snake inside going still the way most snakes do once the light disappears and the world stops moving under them. Children on these farms are taught the shape of a copperhead's head and the sound of a rattlesnake's tail, the same way other kids are taught to look both ways crossing a road, calmly, early, and without drama. Because panic is what gets people bitten, not the snake itself. Here's the piece almost nobody outside these communities knows, and it's the reason the whole system actually holds together, instead of just repeating the problem down the road. You can't just walk a venomous snake to the far corner of your own property and call it solved. Herpetologists who've tracked relocated snakes with radio transmitters have found that many species carry something close to a homing instinct, a fixed sense of their own territory that pulls them back toward it even after they've been moved. Drop a copperhead a few hundred yards away, and there's a real chance it works its way home within days, right back to the same stone pile, the same porch, the same henhouse door. So the farmers who do this well don't move a snake a little, they move it a lot, often a mile or more, across a road, over a ridge, past whatever landmarks a snake uses to navigate its own small world. Far enough that the animal has to start over somewhere it can actually survive, instead of spending its energy trying to walk home to a farmyard it can't get back into. That's why the copperhead from the henhouse didn't end up in the back pasture or the near woodlot. It ended up a mile off, past two neighbouring farms, in a fence row thick enough to hunt in and far enough that the little sense of direction a snake carries in its head would have nothing familiar left to follow. That's the whole trick,
hiding underneath a system that looks, from a distance, almost too simple to work. It isn't one clever move, it's 5 ordinary ones, stacked in the right order, done the same patient way every single time, generation after generation, without ever needing a single snake to die for any of it. And there's something almost tender sitting underneath the practical logic of it, if you look close enough. A neighbour teaches a child the difference between a harmless milk snake and a copperhead before that child can read. A father hands his son a bucket instead of a shovel and never once explains why. Because the why was handed to him the same silent way by his own father, on the same ground, probably over the same kind of snake. A farm that could reach for poison or a gun in about 4 seconds chooses every single time the slower, harder, more patient road instead. Nobody's writing that choice down anywhere either. It just gets made again, quietly, the next time a bucket needs carrying. The real question underneath all of this is why a family would choose the slower path at all, when a hoe is faster and a gun is faster still. And the answer these families keep giving, quietly, 1 bucket and 1 board at a time, is that faster was never really the point.